You ever get that feeling? Like the universe just decided to test your patience for fun? That was me, on a perfectly normal Tuesday afternoon, standing on my porch, sipping lukewarm coffee, wondering whether I should mow the lawn, or maybe let the dandelions win this time. I was mid-internal debate when it happened. That's when she arrived. Big black SUV, windows tinted so dark it looked like the Batmobile had moved to suburbia. But even the deepest tint couldn't hide the telltale signs. Platinum blonde bob, oversized sunglasses, that aura of entitlement you can feel in your soul. She didn't just pull up next door. Oh no. She rolled in like she owned the block, like this cul-de-sac was her personal kingdom. And naturally, she christened her arrival by driving straight across my lawn. Yep, 2 wheels on the driveway, 2 on my grass. I blinked. She parked, got out, pushed her sunglasses up onto her head like she was about to serve someone at a tennis match. Then she gave me the look. You know, that signature, "I'm about to speak to your manager" glare. "Morning," she said with the enthusiasm of someone who thought social interaction was optional. "Morning," I replied, slowly. "You just parked on my lawn." She waved it off like I'd told her her shoelace was untied. "Oh, that? It's just grass." Then, with a dazzling smile like she was doing me a favor, she announced, "I'm Karen. I live here now." I nodded, mentally filing that under worst news of the week, right next to finding out my favorite burrito place was shutting down. Great, I thought. Perfect. Wonderful. Just what I needed. I literally helped an old lady cross the street last week. Why is karma doing me like this? But hey, I'm an optimist. Maybe she wasn't that bad. Maybe the name, haircut, and SUV were just a red herring. Maybe she bakes cookies and rescues cats. Spoiler, she was exactly as bad as she looked. The next day, same story. I'm outside again, watering the flowers, pretending I'm a responsible adult, when I hear it. The crunch of tires. On grass. I turn. She's back. Same SUV. Same route. Same lawn abuse. Except this time, she has the audacity to wave at me like we're old pals. "Oh, hey you," she chirps, stepping out of the car. "Karen. Lawn." "Oh, yes," she nods cheerfully. "You're doing a great job with it. Looks amazing." And then she just walks inside. Like it's a drive-thru and she just placed her order for a Big Mac and a side of sod destruction. I stared after her, blinking in disbelief. This woman was unreal. So, I tried being reasonable. Multiple times. Calm conversations. Friendly tone. Adulting at its best. And every single time, she brushed me off with variations of, "It's just grass, don't be dramatic. You men and your precious lawns. It'll grow back, sweetie. 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 All right. Fine." She wanted to play dumb? I'd play along. Let's start simple. Cones. Bright orange, impossible to miss cones. A whole fortress of them, lined up right where my lawn met the driveway. No way she could miss them. Wrong. She didn't miss them. She ran over them. Full speed. Like it was an off-road obstacle course, and she was filming for a GoPro commercial. By the time I got outside, they were flattened like pancakes. Karen was halfway to her door, sipping an iced matcha like it was just another Tuesday in hell. "Karen," I called out. She turned, sunglasses already halfway on. "You saw the cones, right?" "Oh, those?" she laughed. "I thought they were, like, Halloween decorations or something." Silly. Silly. Sure. Let's go with that." I sighed. "Okay. Next step. A sign. A big one. Custom-made. Bold font. Private property. Do not drive on grass. Violators will be reported." Drilled it into the edge of the lawn, like Moses slamming commandments into stone. Even a blindfolded raccoon could have read it. And still, Karen mowed it down like she was reenacting Mad Max. Fury Road. The sign? Cracked in half. Lawn. Torn up. My patience. Hanging by a single frayed thread. I stormed over. This time I was done being nice. "Karen, are you kidding me? A sign? You ignored cones, fine. Maybe you're allergic to traffic safety. But how do you ignore a sign?" She looked at me, shrugged, and said, "Well, I needed to turn around. It's just easier with that bit of space. Honestly, I think those signs might not even be legal. Like, I read somewhere. Karen, I interrupted deadpan. That's not how any of this works. She narrowed her eyes. You're kind of making a big deal out of this. It's just a lawn. No, it was no longer just a lawn. It was a matter of principle now. That was the moment I knew. She wasn't going to stop. Not unless I made her. Fine, Karen. You want a war? You just declared it. So I smiled, nodded slowly, and said, well, if signs and cones won't stop you, something else will. And that's when the plan formed. See, what Karen didn't know, and really should have considered before picking this fight, was that I have a brother. And my brother? He works in special effects for a film studio. One time, they were shooting a movie near my place, and somehow he left a box of props in my garage. The props they use in chase scenes. Fully functional. Totally real. They'd been sitting there collecting dust for months. And now, it was finally their time to shine. The next morning, as soon as Karen peeled off in her monster truck for soccer moms to go ruin someone else's day, I sprang into action. Coffee down, gloves on, lawn transformation time. I lifted the piece of turf where her SUV's tires always landed. By now, I could probably map her turning radius with military precision. She was that consistent. It was like clockwork, if your clock hated landscaping. I carefully set everything up underneath. Made sure everything was flat, flush, and invisible. Then, I placed the grass back exactly how it was before, picture perfect. Like nothing had ever happened. Martha Stewart would have cried tears of joy. Then I replanted the sign. Not just as a warning. No. Now it was foreshadowing. And for the cherry on top, I installed 2 security cameras. Discreet. High-res. Perfect angle to catch every glorious frame of what was about to unfold. Just in case Karen decided to go full Broadway and perform the role of the innocent victim. Oh, Karen. Sweet, tire-shredding Karen. You have no idea. A few hours later, I made myself a fresh cup of coffee and headed out to the porch, taking my usual spot like a villain waiting for Act 3. The birds were chirping. The breeze was gentle. Somewhere a lawnmower buzzed in the distance. Life was good. And then, I heard it. That familiar engine growl. That low rumble of pure suburban chaos on wheels. She was back. Karen turned onto the street like she was entering the Daytona 500. I stood there, mug in hand, watching as she barreled toward her house and my lawn. Again, like every single warning sign was just a decorative suggestion. No hesitation. No flinch. Not even a glance at the giant sign she'd now flattened twice. This woman had the situational awareness of a baked potato. All right, I whispered. Camera, motor, and action. Karen drove up, right into the trap. PFFF, 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 PFFF. It was like popcorn. If popcorn had the power to end your day and your tires at the same time. Her SUV dropped instantly on all sides. For perfectly timed hisses. For beautiful, tragic, rubbery deaths. I took a slow sip of coffee. Tasted like justice. Karen sat in her car, stunned. I could see her silhouette freeze through the windshield. Her head jerked toward the dashboard, then back at the lawn, then forward again. I'd bet good money that for about 3 seconds, she truly believed the earth had betrayed her. Then she flung the door open, stumbled out in her high-end yoga pants, and looked around like someone had just set her Range Rover on fire. She stared at the tires, then at me, then at the grass. I waved. She didn't wave back. Instead, she screamed, You attacked me. Good morning, Karen, I said cheerfully. Tough day. You're insane. I'm calling the cops. Oh, fantastic idea. You absolutely should. She blinked, thrown off by my enthusiasm. I could practically hear her internal monologue short-circuiting. She expected a guilty face, an apology, anything but gleeful agreement. What she got was me, sipping coffee like I was on a vacation commercial. I'm reporting this as a violent act, she screeched. You tampered with the lawn. That's like a booby trap. Technically, I said, you tampered with the lawn. Repeatedly. And I warned you. Repeatedly. There's a sign. There were cones. There were very polite conversations you chose to ignore. I'm basically a saint at this point. Her voice went up an octave. This is sabotage. Well, I said, squinting into my cup, it's definitely something you could have avoided by, And I'm just spitballing here, not driving on my lawn like a demolition derby contestant. She whipped out her phone and started yelling into it. Something about an emergency, a crazy neighbor, vehicular assault, standard Karen vocabulary. I stepped back inside, retrieved my phone, then returned to the porch with a satisfied sigh. Oh, I was joking about police, I muttered. But if you really want to dig your own grave here, be my guest. About 10 minutes later, a patrol car rolled up. 2 officers got out, one looking mildly interested, the other looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Karen ran up to them like they were her long-lost backup dancers. "It's him," she cried. "He attacked my vehicle." The officers looked at me. I raised a hand, calm as you like. "Hi there. Would you gentlemen like the short version or the full movie?" They exchanged a look. "Sir, we're just here to understand what happened." "Perfect," I said. "Let me give you the tour." I pointed to the lawn. "This is my property. My lawn, specifically." I gestured to the mangled signpost lying in the grass. That was my warning sign, twice ignored. Then I pointed to the cone massacre remnants stacked neatly by the porch. Those were my cones. She ran them over. More than once. Like some kind of safety-hating monster truck driver. I walked a few steps toward the sidewalk and pointed back. That is Karen's SUV. Beautiful, really. Now with 75% less air. And finally, I said, holding up my phone, these are my security camera recordings. With timestamps. Would you like to see when she's trespassed? Karen's jaw was somewhere near her collarbone at this point. The officers watched the video. Silent. Just the sound of her SUV rolling onto my lawn like it was a highlight reel from How to Get Sued, Home Edition. When the footage finished, one of them turned to Karen. "Ma'am, is there anything you'd like to explain?" She stared at her shoes like they had answers. The silence was delicious. Karen, the woman who couldn't stop talking over me, over signs, over basic social norms, was suddenly mute. Her gaze now fixed intently on her shoelaces, as if hoping they'd form a legal defense and argue on her behalf. One of the officers cleared his throat. "Ma'am, you were given multiple warnings. There's clear documentation of you trespassing on private property. But," she finally sputtered, "I was just trying to turn around. It's not like I meant to hurt anyone." Intent doesn't change the fact you ignored signs, drove over cones, and continuously entered private property without permission, the older officer said. "That's trespassing and property damage. At best." And, his partner added, glancing at the SUV, "There's no evidence the property owner tampered with your vehicle. He simply reinforced his own lawn. After you made it your personal racetrack." "But it's a lawn," she cried, now channeling the last few volts of her entitlement battery. "It's just grass." I stepped forward, arms crossed, eyebrows raised. "Yeah, that's kind of been your catchphrase, hasn't it?" The officer looked at me. "Sir, would you like to press charges?" I smiled. Tempting. Very tempting. But no, officer. I think we're good, as long as there's something official in place to keep her tires off my soil. The officers nodded. "We can file a no trespass order. That'll prohibit her from driving on or stepping onto your property moving forward." "Perfect," I said, sipping my coffee. "It's all I've ever wanted." One of them turned back to Karen. "Ma'am, we're going to issue you a citation for property damage and trespassing. Also, per the homeowner's request, we're issuing a formal notice prohibiting further entry onto his property, including the lawn." Karen's expression morphed from stunned to full horror. You're siding with him?" "He set me up." The older cop turned to her and said, without blinking, "Ma'am, you set yourself up." Repeatedly. The only thing he set was boundaries. Oof. Even I winced at that one. She stood frozen in place, probably calculating how many HOA meetings it would take to have me excommunicated from the neighborhood. Spoiler alert, more than she had left. As they wrote up the citation, Karen muttered something about lawyers, lawsuits, needing to speak to a sergeant, and, I kid you not, grass bias. When she finally limped back to her vehicle, now sagging on 4 flattened tires like a beached whale in Lululemon, the officers turned to me. "Anything else we can do for you, sir?" one asked. I shook my head. "No, I think watching her ego deflate faster than her tires is about all the closure I need." They chuckled, nodded, and left. Karen didn't move for a solid 15 minutes. She just sat in her car, windows up, doing, I don't know, Karen math? Trying to calculate how I was the villain in all this. Eventually, she got out and stormed back into her house. I waited, because I knew what was coming next. The next few days were blissfully quiet. Karen didn't leave the house. Not once. Her SUV sat there like a monument to bad decisions, resting sadly on its rims. She didn't even try to get the tires changed. I like to think she wanted the neighbors to ask, what happened, just so she could say, my evil neighbor Booby trapped his lawn, and hear them respond, good for him. But no one came. No one cared. I got a few nods from other neighbors. One guy walking his dog even said, didn't think anyone could shut her up. Nicely done. Then, a week later, it happened. I heard the rumble of a truck. I peeked through the blinds like I was in some neighborhood noir thriller. A moving van. It pulled up to Karen's driveway. Two guys hopped out and started loading furniture. The SUV? Still there. Still sad. Karen came out a few minutes later, barking orders at the movers, looking around to see if anyone was watching. I was. From the porch. With a fresh cup of coffee. She saw me. And for the first time ever, she didn't say a word. No wave. No snark. No attitude. Just a glance, a small twitch of her mouth, and then she got into the passenger seat of the moving truck. She didn't even try to turn around in my lawn this time. The truck backed out, slowly, carefully, past my yard, past the sign, past me. Victory. I raised my mug in a mock salute. +1 reformed Karen, I said quietly. And with that, she was gone. The birds chirped louder. The grass seemed greener. Peace had returned to suburbia. For now. Because if there's one thing I've learned, if another Karen ever tries it, well, my lawn still got plenty of surprises. Thank you for being with us. Please share in the comments where you are watching from and whether you liked everything, and see you next time.